Good morning, grade 5s. Today we are going to be doing a lesson on poetry. I did a similar lesson with you last year where we went through rhythm, rhyme, and repetition. But today we're also going to add figures of speech and see how many you can remember. So before we start, make sure you've got your DVE book in front of you. You've got a pen and either paper to write on or a book to write in. First, we're going to look at rhyme. You guys know lots about rhyme. We've done it before. Rhyme is the repetition of similar sounds in two or more words. These words are usually at the end of the line in your poem to help create the rhythm. Remember, the rhythm is the way you're saying the poem because of how it's been written. So rhyme, I gave you 3 rhyming words at the bottom. There's the example: sight, bright, and light. These words all rhyme as they end with the same sound. If you go to page 104 of your DBE book, you will see that there are 3 limericks there. A limerick is a 5-line poem that is meant to be quite funny. What I want you to do is look at those poems and look for the words that rhyme. So if we look at the poem in green first, it says, "There once was a wonderful star who thought she would go very far. Until she fell down and looked like a clown, she knew she would never go far." So if we look at the rhyming words, we've got star and far, down and clown, and then far again would go with star and far in the first lines. All of those would be your rhyming words. Remember that when we look at poems, we try to look for a rhyme scheme. So if we had to give that poem a rhyme scheme, star and far rhyme, so we would both give them an A. Now down doesn't rhyme with far, so we would have to give it another letter. So down would be B. Then we go to clown. Down and clown rhyme, so clown would also be B. And then far rhymes with star and far in the first 2 lines, so it would be an A. So your rhyme scheme here would be A, B, B, and A. Now I want you to look at the other 2 poems and do the same thing. Underline the words that rhyme with each other or circle them, and then write down the rhyme scheme. I covered rhyme scheme in the previous slide, but if you're still not sure, have a look at this one. I want to go through your answers for your rhyme scheme of your other 2 limericks. So let's have a look at the one in yellow first about the Ferrari. There was a man with a Ferrari who rushed through the Kalahari to buy some books about his good looks, for he was in a great hurry. So your rhyme scheme there is A, B, B, and A, because Ferrari, hurry. They end with the same sound, even though the letter is different, it's pronounced the same. And let's have a look at the pink poem. There was an old man of Peru who dreamt he was eating his shoe. He woke up in the night with a terrible fright and found it was perfectly true. Your rhyme scheme there is A, B, B, and A again. I hope you've noticed that every single limerick has the same rhyme scheme. So next time when I tell you to look at limericks, you'll know that every limerick is 5 lines. It's meant to be quite funny or humorous, and your rhyme scheme is A, B, B, A. Here's an example of one more rhyme scheme. I just wanted you to see that rhyme schemes aren't always repeated. So if you look at the rhyme below, there once was a fat cat who liked to eat cute little mice. All day he watched while he sat, licking his lips in anticipation. Anticipation means that he really wanted to eat them. He was looking forward to it. So you can see the rhyme scheme is A, B, A, C. So not all poems repeat themselves in rhyme scheme or have the same rhyme scheme. All limericks have the same rhyme scheme, but a limerick is just a type of poem. So other poems might not have the same rhyme scheme. We will look at some other poems later and you'll begin to see that some of them are very different. some poems don't even rhyme. To practice all of the work we've just gone through, I want you to do page 104, 106, and 107 in your DBE books. You can either do this now or when we're done with the lesson. If you don't have your DBE book, you'll see I've pasted page 104 and 105 on this slide, and I've pasted page 107 on the next. You can write your answers down on a piece of paper or just in a workbook. I'm going to be sending out the marking memo for this on Wednesday so that you can check all your answers and see how well you understood. I want you to work very carefully on page 107 because it asks you to write your own limerick. Remember everything we spoke about. A limerick has to be 5 lines, it must be humorous or funny, and it must have the rhyme scheme A, B, B, A. So work very carefully. I'm very excited to listen to some of your limericks when we get back to school. We have gone over rhythm and rhyme scheme in a poem. Now I want to go over figurative language in a poem. Remember, when I say figurative language, I'm talking about figures of speech. Remember, figures of speech have figurative meanings and literal meanings. The literal meaning is my funny meaning. It's very silly, it doesn't make lots of sense. My figurative meaning is serious. What am I actually trying to say? Now, before I put all of my figures of speech on the board, there are 9 that we've done in class so far. I want you to write down as many as you can remember, and maybe you can remember all 9. You might want to pause the video to write them down, and then when you're done, you can press play again. Now I've got them all on the slide. See which ones you did not remember. I'll go through them with you. Metaphor, simile, onomatopoeia, personification, idioms, proverbs, hyperbole, alliteration, and assonance. I hope that you got quite a few of them down, and if you got all of them, well done. If you didn't, it's fine. Keep on working hard. I'm going to go through each one with you, giving you a definition and an example. I think it's a good idea to write these down as part of your notes so that you can revise them and go over them. Because remember, you'll do all of these in grade 6, so they're a very, very good concept to remember. Let's first look at a metaphor. Metaphors compare 2 things by saying something is something else. That word is very important because we're going to use it in our sentences and examples. For example, my mom is a ray of sunshine. Now, if we look at literal and figurative meaning, the literal meaning of that sentence is that my mom is not a person. She's an actual ray of sunshine. And I can't hold her, squeeze her. She is a ray of sunshine. The figurative meaning is that she's lovely and beautiful and kind and helpful. So remember that that is the difference between your literal and your figurative meaning. Moving on to a simile. They compare 2 things using the words like and as. Underline those words. They are very important for us to use. For example, I run like the wind, or he is as fast as the wind. Next is onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia are words that are used to imitate sounds. For example, if a glass has dropped, the word that would imitate that sound could be smash or crash. You can write down some of your own words as part of your examples. Next, personification. Giving a non-living object human characteristics. So I'm taking an object that is not alive and I'm giving it the characteristics of a human that you and I would have. For example, the grass danced in the wind. Now it looks like the grass is dancing in the wind when the wind blows because it's moving all over the place, but it can't actually dance because it's not a human. So when I say the grass danced, I am personifying the grass by giving it the action of dancing. I'll give you another example if you're a bit confused. The rain slid happily down the window. Now, rain can't be happy. So when I say the rain slid happily down the window, which human characteristic am I giving it? I'm saying that it slid happily. That's the human characteristic. What is being personified? What is the object that I've now made alive? It's the rain. The rain slid happily down the window. That is personification. If you're still not sure, look back in your workbook. We have done a note on this before. Idioms. Idioms are short phrases that have two meanings. For example, that race was a piece of cake. It doesn't mean that the race was an actual piece of cake that I had to eat really quickly. It actually means that it was easy. We did loads of these in class, and you've got them on a worksheet in your workbook, so go have a look at them. Proverbs. Proverbs are a short saying that teaches us a lesson. For example, 2 wrongs don't make a right, which is telling us that it's not right to take revenge on other people. So idioms have 2 meanings and proverbs teach us a lesson. That is the main difference between them. Next, we look at hyperbole. And hyperbole is an over-exaggeration. For example, you'll hear this many times from myself and your parents. I have told you 1,000 times. Or I could say, my tea was as hot as lava. Now, my tea definitely can't be as hot as lava. And I'm sure I haven't told you 1,000 times. It just feels like it. So I have over-exaggerated. Maybe try to come up with your own hyperboles at home. And lastly, let's look at alliteration and assonance. Alliteration is the repetition of a consonant sound. Remember we said that consonant is any letter that is not a vowel. And then assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound. Your vowels are A, E, I, O, and U. You will see that in the heading alliteration and assonance, I've underlined certain letters. In alliteration, I underline the 2 L's. An L is a consonant. That will help remind you that alliteration repeats a consonant sound. And in assonance, I've underlined the letter O. And that will remind you that assonance is the repetition of a vowel sound because O is a vowel. Make sure that you get all of these notes down and that you understand them before moving to the next slide. To finish off this section of our lesson, we are going to go through a poem on page 108 of your DBE books. You can save this section for tomorrow because this lesson can be split up into Monday and Tuesday. You're only going to get another lesson on Wednesday. So if you've had enough for today, you can close it off and you can come back and finish this section tomorrow, or you can carry on for today. Right, turn to page 108 of your DBE book. We're going to go through a poem, and I want you to read it through as I read it and go through it with me because I'm going to ask you some questions when we're done, and I'm going to see how much you know. So let's give it a read. It says, Autumn's chores. Summer's getting drowsy now. Soon she will be dozing. Flowers are folding up their heads. Another season's closing. Autumn's waiting in the wings, impatient to get going. He has a lot of work to do before it's time for snowing. I have to paint the leaves, he says, in shades of red and gold, and send the birds along their way before it gets too cold. Sunshiny days will be shorter now. I'll add a cool, crisp breeze. For this relief from summer's heat, I make no apologies. I have just one more thing to do. My work is almost done. I'll turn the leaves to crunchy piles so kids can have autumn fun. Okay, in this poem, we see a lot of a certain figure of speech going on. I'm going to give you a chance to figure out what it is. If you don't remember, go back to the figures of speech, have a read through them, and decide which one it is. Once you have the answer, you can say it out loud or you can write it down. What figure of speech do I see in this poem? It's personification. Most of the objects or things in nature are being personified. So let's have a look so we can have a better understanding. If you go to stanza 1, now remember, we don't call groups of words in a poem paragraphs, we call them stanzas. So this poem has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stanzas. So go to stanza 1. It says, "Summer's getting drowsy now, soon she will be dozing." So what object have they personified? Have a look and see what is non-living that they've now given an action to. You can say your answer out loud or you can write it down. What have they personified in that line of the poem? It's summer. So I want you to take your pen or pencil and underline summer. Now let's go to the third line in the first stanza. It says, "Flowers are folding up their heads, another season's closing." Underline or say out loud what they are personifying. You needed to underline flowers because flowers are being personified. It sounds like they're going to sleep. Let's look at the second stanza. "Autumn's waiting in the wings, impatient to get going." Underline what is being personified. Autumn is being personified, so you need to underline that. He has a lot of work to do before it's time for snowing. So now we know that this poem is not really happening in South Africa because it doesn't snow in South Africa. But in most countries in the southern hemisphere, during winter, it snows. So that's what they mean, because after autumn, we get winter, and in some countries in winter, it snows. Let's go to stanza 3. "I have to paint the leaves," he said, "in shades of red and gold, and send the birds along their way before it gets too cold." Who's talking in that stanza? It's Autumn. They're making Autumn a person where he's talking and describing what he's doing. So it makes the poem more exciting and it makes it come to life. What does he mean when he says, "and send the birds along their way before it gets too cold"? What is it called when birds go from one place to another so that they are in warmer areas? If you know the answer, you can write it down or say it out loud. What is it called when birds go from one area to another as the seasons change? They are migrating. That's what he's talking about. He's going to send the birds along their way and they're going to migrate before it gets too cold for them. Let's go to stanza 4. "Sunshiny days will be shorter now. I'll add a cool, crisp breeze." That cool, crisp breeze is that little bit of air that when it hits your skin, you feel very, very cold. "For this relief from summer's heat." That means it's going to cool everything down and we're not going to be so hot anymore. I make no apologies. And the last stanza. "I have just one more thing to do. My work is almost done." Who is talking there? Think very carefully about what we said before and say your answer out loud or write it down. Autumn is talking. We still have Autumn being personified and being made to be a real person. I'm going to start at the top of stanza 5 again. "I have just one more thing to do. My work is almost done. I'll turn the leaves to crunchy piles so kids can have autumn fun." In autumn, the leaves start falling from the trees And lots of children might jump in them and roll around in them and have a good time. And that's what he's talking about. So what I want you to do is look at the poem. Go through it again carefully and underline all the objects that have been personified. When you're done with that, I want you to go through page 108 and 109 and answer all those questions very, very carefully. Once you're done with page 109, you can finish off page 110. I want you to read those instructions very carefully from top to bottom. Don't leave any instructions out, because at the end they ask you to write your own little poem, not anything too long, but their instructions are very, very specific. And when we come back to school, I want to read some of your poems and I want you to share them with the class so that we can all see what we've been busy with. On Wednesday, I'm going to send the memos for all the work you've done so you can see how well you did. Good luck, work hard, and remember to read very carefully before you do your work.